future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
And welcome, everyone. You've tuned in to one of the #1 shows here on the Universal Broadcasting Network, Dr. Judy WTF, which, of course, stands for What the Freud. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and we have Dr. Judy Rosenberg here in studio. As busy as she is, she always finds time to sneak into the studio just in time. And today we're going to continue our series of our show that we started last week on if you are unable to move on in a relationship. I mean, come on. How many of us have a torch that we're still carrying for one reason or another? And we need to really, if we stop just for a moment and think, we've got to blow it out. And this is a call-in show, so give us a shout. And you can get on the couch with Dr. Judy with your emotional ouch. And the number is area code 323-843-2826. And we have another special song we're going to shrink at the end of the show. And it's relating to unable to move on in a relationship. So this is a continuation, of course, of our Hole in the Soul. And I started the show last week with this, and I still think it's a great quote. I never hate you for not loving me anymore, but I hate myself for still loving you.
So let's go back to the concept of the hole in the soul, because really that's where this whole thing is blueprinted off of. Why is it so difficult for us to let go is because when we don't have healthy attachment, when we don't have secure attachment with our family of origin, typically mom, then what happens is that we develop what I call a hole in the soul, and then when we get in a relationship and that person's supposed to fix the hole in the soul or fill the hole in the soul, and they don't fill the hole in the soul and then end up abandoning the relationship, what happens is that all the wounds from the past come to the surface, and it's really painful. And so it's not so much about the actual relationship, although of course it's also about that, but what it is about is that that person is really re-triggering the original trauma of separation, of mother-infant disconnect.
And sometimes reliving it.
And reliving it, right. So the reason we call the show Dr. Judy WTF is a tribute to Freud and his repetition compulsion. And in this case, why we get into some relationships is because we do want to fix the wound. We want to fix the wounds from childhood. And so we select somebody that's familial and familiar, and we hook up to that person, not because we're stupid, but because we genuinely want to heal the wound. And so we pick our most horrific nightmare and wounder, and we get together with this wounder, and everything becomes material for reactivation. And so one of the things that I do in couples counseling is that I let couples know that your wound and his wound combine together to form a reaction to the wound, and then you guys are triggering off each other's negative core belief, like I'm not lovable, I'm not important, I'm not special. If you have a moment, put up the mind map, because it's pretty clear on the mind map.
Well, from your perspective, and those of you that
from my perspective, and hopefully soon from your perspective.
That created it. Those of you listening, you can go to drjudywtf.com and check out the mind map, and there's a whole plethora of other resources there as well. And at the wrong frame, let's see. Here it is. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so if you notice the top row is what I call the encoding row. So what we are encoding into the fiber of our being is panel 1, which represents the wound of separation, the wound of neglect, the wound of abuse, the wounds of anything that you could think of that hurts our psyche. And then panel 2 is that reaction to the wound. So let's say somebody has been abandoned, or somebody's been beaten, or somebody's been in some way hurt. What happens is that the infant self has a reaction to the trauma. And then the trauma brain, if not soothed and comforted and attuned to, then starts acting in a fight-flight manner. And that fight-flight manner puts people into a heightened state. And over time, this particular heightened state gets built into a story, like I'm not good enough, I'm not number one, I'm not lovable. And that's panel number 3, the core belief. And so what happens is that when people trip up each other's negative core belief, they end up in chaos. Now we're on panel 4, defenses, and implosions and explosions. Now, in a breakup, what happens is that all the wounds from panel 1 are opened up, and then all of the traumas from the trauma brain are activated, and then that horrible core belief, which is that secret belief you have about yourself, which is not so wonderful or not so secret, like I'm really not special, I don't deserve to be loved, gets opened up in this breakup. And then because you now don't have that person that's been maybe your number one support system in your life, you break down into chaos. And then you go back into defense mechanisms that you thought were going to soothe you, like maybe food or alcohol or any other kind
Trying
of
to fill
drug.
that hole in the soul.
Trying to fill the hole in the soul. And then at the end of that journey, you break down. So what's the solution? I think the solution is to heal thyself. That's my solution. My solution is that instead of going into relationships to heal, although all relationships are meant to, on some level, be healing, and on some level they are, and on another level they're not.
Unfortunately, we learn a lot about ourselves in each relationship that we're in.
Yes, we do. But imagine if you can go into a relationship and have your wounds cleaned out before you start the relationship. How wonderful that would be, because now you're not looking for that familial trauma. What you're looking for is more along the lines of panel 7, 8, 9, which is a paradigm shift of interconnection, healing, and a peaceful home, a peaceful life together. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is your picker. And is your picker broken? And are you in a relationship rut, or are you in a horrible relationship that you either have just gotten out of or you need to get out of? Because although familial, it's not the happy ending you were hoping that it was going to be. I know, Walt, we've talked about this many times over, and you sent me a really interesting article about 20 people to keep away from.
It was 25.
Oh, 25. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
the list has gotten longer.
It's a plethora of folks.
Right, a plethora
from a female perspective, and you were saying that we might want to, it's a preview of possibly coming shows, 25 different personalities, was it? To avoid in relationships. It was pretty loaded.
I don't know if you have that list with you.
No, I do not.
But I have some memory of that list.
Okay.
It just hit me in a really,
Sure.
Okay, so one of the types of people to keep away from, we've talked about this many times over, is the narcissist.
Yes, indeed.
Okay? Someone who is all about me, and has no ability to check in.
Whatsoever.
And
no empathy. They couldn't care
Right.
less. It's all about me. If it's not about you, it's still about me.
Right, and at the end of that journey, you will probably feel demeaned, devalued, destroyed, and you will
Demoralized.
be demoralized,
Oh,
all
yeah.
the D's. And then at the end of the journey, you'll feel that you've
Divorced.
been used and divorced, right, and tossed aside. Okay, so the narcissist is somebody that you want to keep away from. Another person that you want to keep away from, and we've talked about this also, is borderline personality disorder, who doesn't know how to regulate him or herself and is so dysregulated that they need the other person just to emotionally survive. And the core of this is abandonment issues, whereas the core of the narcissism is is a mother either overspoiled the child or somehow didn't meet the narcissistic supplies of the child. So in
and
either,
you have to understand, folks, narcissists, as much as you don't want to believe this, because they really put on this aura of superiority, they're radically insecure.
yes.
I mean, if you, I mean,
yes.
you want to test this, just ask a real simple question to someone you think might be a narcissist, like, have you gained some weight? Judy always laughs when it's a really simple, innocuous question. The average person, no, actually, I've lost a couple pounds. The narcissist, they're going to have a fit. So, little test. I always have fun with it.
Yeah, you're so
Did,
cruel.
did you
so
get
cruel,
some, did you get some
Walt.
plastic surgery?
Yeah.
You need some plastic surgery.
Right. So, and they are candidates for plastic surgery.
Oh,
so narcissists
absolutely.
live in the plastic.
Botox
Right.
and,
Right. And so, no, I don't want you to jump to the conclusion just because you got a little
Yeah, from one
Botox,
question, but
that
nonetheless.
you're a narcissist. But you get the drift that if really you're so focused on looking good on the outside and you don't put any energy on working on the inside, that's a problem.
That's a giant hole in the soul.
Right. And then there were some other descriptions of people, the man or the woman who never grew up, doesn't pay the bills, lives with mom and dad.
You know what
right?
we're gonna do, Dr. Judy? Is
Yeah.
we're now gonna take that article, expand it, and that's our show next week.
Thank you.
So
Maybe
if you want to
so.
hear more about ladies specifically, but guys as well, from
Right.
a relationship perspective, well, maybe dating, 25 different characters, shall we say, that should be avoided, and maybe you're one of them. And so, you know what? Tune in next week.
And the thing about being one of them, I think all of us carry characteristics
do.
of everything.
Right.
And I think the most valuable piece of work a human being can do is to self-reflect and self-correct. Own your own stuff. Because once you start owning your own stuff, what happens is the other person starts owning theirs.
You
and
mean
then,
like being responsible?
yeah, just like that.
We're going to talk about that.
So, look, if you've got your dirty laundry on the table and I've got my dirty laundry on the table and you take care of yours and I take care of mine, then what's left is a clean table and we can interconnect and interrelate. And one of the things I talked about today with the couple that I was working with is how old files from the past are really interfering with the space between the two people. So it's like her infiltrations from the past and her wounds from the past and his wounds from the past are now cracking their lens of perception. And now the space between them gets distorted and all the trauma files come out. And so instead of interrelating with each other, they're really interrelating with the wounds of their past, and it's not clean space. So
and it's not passion either.
No, it's not passion.
No.
And so people confuse breaking up and pining with love. It's not love. It's wounds that have been activated.
So if you think your picker might be broken, what we strongly suggest you do is pick the Psychological Healing Center to work on your picker. That way you'll be more healthy, and thereby you will have a more healthy perspective and pick somebody different than you've picked in the past.
Yeah, and for those of you who want to do teletherapy for people
Skype.
who can't afford my rates, I have interns that work
very
under
sliding
my
scale.
under me and are
Supervision.
trained in the mind map system. So I'm putting it out there because I can't emphasize enough that the system counts. And I can't emphasize enough that if you don't do the work of cleaning out the wound and you repress and you suppress, you end up exploding.
Yes, and
Right.
we don't want you to implode or explode here on the show. We'd like you to unload and get on the couch with Dr. Judy, and you do that by simply calling. So if you're now at on a Thursday night, listen to us, call us. We want to hear from you. The number is 323-843-2826. Because remember, some people believe holding on and hanging in there are signs of great strength. However, there are times when it takes much more strength to know when to let go and then to do it. Because what we're really talking about here is getting over relationships and detoxing it. Is what we've gone through basically is a death of a
Yes,
dream.
very much so.
We'd hoped that this person was the one. They were our soulmate. They were our soul match. And all of a sudden, for whatever reason, we're empty. We've got a big hole in the soul. And so, it's it's really, really difficult and challenging to let go and to move on.
And, although it is true that you don't necessarily have to have two perfectly healthy people to be in a relationship, as Dr. Stan Tatkin in his book Wired for Love says, you really have to understand each other, and you have to understand each other's, I call it their Achilles heel. Study your partner, know how to become a couple bubble, learn how to regulate their emotions. Although I have to say that if someone is too dysregulated, if they're just too far out on the side of emotional roller coaster, or too far out on the other side of inability to feel, inability to empathize, it's really hard for those two people to get it together and keep it together.
It's very difficult.
That's where the work comes in.
Yep.
It's, you take responsibility for your own wounds, heal them, and then get together.
I thought we'd just dive in terms of letting go, and I thought we'd be a little more global today in terms of relationships, which could apply to any kind of relationship, whether it's a family member, former lover, spouse, or somebody at work. Right. So I've got here 8 reasons reasons you might want to let go and move on. Because sometimes, we're not sure or hoping, and, if you sit down just for a moment, stop, take a breath, take a break, and you might end up with a different perspective. Because what, you're changing and the universe around us is changing. And just because something was right for you in the past doesn't mean it is now. And again, it could be a relationship, job, home, a habit. Right. So I got 8 ones here. Someone negatively rubbing off on you. Okay. You are the average of people who spend the most time with. And I know one person that says they can figure out if they learn more about the 5 people that you hang out with on a regular basis, doesn't matter whether it's at work or home or at the gym or whatever, they can figure out your net worth and what kind of person you are. So if you're around a cynical, negative people all the time, chances are you're going to become cynical and negative. It's just how it works. Mm-hmm. Next is you've grown apart from somebody. Sad but true, and some people will, they'll sort of evolve away from your core values. Mm-hmm. And I know change is hard, but sometimes it's necessary.
And I just want to make a point for people who do enter therapy. I really suggest that if you're in a relationship, that both of you enter therapy at the same time under the same system, because what happens is one will grow, the other won't grow, and then one will outgrow the other. It's really, really frustrating, and that's why it's so important to be on the same page, on the same mind map from my system point of view, and so that you can have a structure within which you can identify the problem and paradigm shift out of it.
And it's very efficient and very effective. And and given Judy's system, Dr. Judy's system, it is really, really quicker than you imagine. So going on to reasons to move on, the third is you're truly unhappy with your current circumstances. It reminds me of a story of the guy went to a hunting lodge, and there was a dog that was kind of howling in the corner, and the guy goes, well, what's the matter with the dog? Oh, he's on attack. Goes, well, why doesn't he move? Well, it doesn't hurt him that much yet.
Oh.
Okay, so he's sitting there moaning and groaning about the fact he's, being poked by this nail or attack, but it doesn't hurt him enough to actually get up and physically move. Mm-hmm. And so, it's better. It's always better to be struggling with something you love than struggling and succeeding diligently something you despise.
Interesting.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fourth, your goals and needs have changed. I mean, come on. Then there's what was right for you then may not necessarily be right for you now. Sometimes the hardest part isn't letting go, but rather realizing that you've changed and you got to start over, which I know is scary.
And just because you've changed, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to start over, but it does mean that you've got to communicate to your partner where those changes are taking place and how your partner can either join you or support you, but because there's got to be some connection around those changes.
Yes.
Or else it'll create a schism and then a break.
And a schism, what's a schism?
Like a rift between two people.
Right. And then it'll just get worse.
It just will get worse. It doesn't get better without the bridge, without the communication. Speaking of which, for those of you who want the bridge of communication, go to my website. Go to the forums section up on the upper right-hand corner, and you will find the Peaceful Healing Dialogue.
And
which
also
is a dialogue
right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Which is a dialogue to help keep people interconnected, a way to share without destroying the relationship.
It's very simple. It's laid out. It's all on one page. And also, if we want to learn more about the mind map, there's on the form section as well, there's a one-page sort of description and breakdown of what the mind map is.
Yes.
So fifth, I like this one, which I think is a really, really big one, is fear. Fear is holding us back. Now remember, I define fear, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. Or I had another friend of mine not long ago said, fool everyone and run.
Fool everyone and run.
F everyone and run.
F everyone.
F everyone and run. So part of letting go is moving on, facing the fears and disappointments of the past that are binding your spirit.
And sometimes those fears are those false perceptions.
False evidence appearing real.
So you've got the cracked lens of perception, which is really made out of the blueprint of our past. So if we have a mother or father that in some way has injured us, right, then we are made up of an encoding that doesn't allow us to see, maybe doesn't even allow us to know that the person in front of us is trying to give us something. Maybe we don't know how to take in, or maybe we don't know how to put up boundaries. I like to use the metaphor of the 3 cells, biological cells, the permeable membrane, which is more the borderline. Everything flows in, right? No boundaries. And then we've got the non-permeable membrane, which is a little bit more like the narcissist. Not too much can come in, or the paranoid. And then we've got the semi-permeable membrane, which is the membrane, the cell membrane that knows how to regulate itself and let in the good and keep in the bad. So oftentimes in relationships, why they break up is because the person's membrane is damaged. So if you've had some kind of physical abuse, it's sort of like that membrane's been broken. Okay, so the reaction to the wound might be that they thicken their membrane and let no one in, or they just kind of cave in and let everyone in and just let anyone in, and then that defines your picker is broken because you don't know how to discriminate any longer. And then you end up breaking up because who you chose to be in there with you is doing more harm than good. It's just like a psychovirus got in there.
Psychovirus.
A psychovirus. Psychological virus.
You've
that makes you psycho.
No, makes all of us psycho.
Yeah, exactly.
You've alluded to one of these, and this is number 6, is you catch yourself living in the past. I mean, how many of us have, like, I alluded to this last week, if you've had a relationship, which we're talking about how to get over, and it is over because it broke in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
It's broken. And getting back together and trying to piece the pieces back together, chances are it's just not going to work. I had a friend of mine say a long time ago, it is easier to give birth than to raise the dead.
Yeah, good point.
And so,
right.
if you attempt to revive and relive something that's already happened, you're missing out. The mental space that you create by letting go of things that are already behind you gives you ability to fill the space with something that is fresh and fun.
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of people pine over the image of what they dream that person to be and not the person. Oh my God, he was so handsome, and he was so loving, and he was so this and giving. Well, what about the times that he totally ignored you? Or what about the times that he forgot your anniversary? Or what about the times when she embarrassed you in public? I mean, those memories don't always come up in the file of the pining file.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because number 7 is an old grudge is still hurting you. So the old memories are not the good ones, they're the bad ones. So the weight of anger, resentment, and hatred is not only holding you back, but it's blocking your present blessings and opportunities. So you got to drop some things to move forward.
Right.
And lastly is you aren't learning anything new. Maybe you're kind of stale, and living is learning. Okay.
So don't you think that as you get into a relationship, learn more about yourself, get out of the relationship, and then really take stock of what went wrong and take stock of yourself more than anyone else, because we tend to want to take stock of that other person. But if we took more stock about who we were being in the relationship and why we even chose the person that we were in the relationship with, then we could more easily self-reflect and more easily self-correct and understand, that person represented my negative core belief that I wasn't important enough. Oh, no wonder I chose him or her, because I just played that whole story out again. Or this one represented that I'm not capable because the person put me down throughout the course of the relationship. And so now we can begin to connect the dots and see why we chose those people and why they're not in our lives anymore, why it didn't work out.
And you are listening to, if you just tuned in, to Dr. Judy WTF, which is What the Freud. I'm your host, Walt Lusk. We're here on the Universal Broadcasting Network. You can catch us on Stitcher and iTunes and on real time on the UBN Radio Network, ubnradio.com, or their app or the iTunes app. And today we're talking about ways to, let go of an old relationship. And this is a continuation of our Hole in the Soul series, and how to heal human disconnect, which of course is our byline of our show. And if you think your picker's off, you might want to look in the mirror and pick up the phone and call the Psychological Healing Center, or either through Skype or otherwise. And you know what? We've got a call in. Let's dive into that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for calling. You're on the air with Dr. Judy and Walt.
Hi, Walt. I was just listening, and I had a little input on the whole situation with not being able to let go.
Sure.
Because, it's not that you're still in love with your ex. It's that you can't handle your ex being with somebody else.
Oh,
because
very
you think
good point.
that other person is better than you, when they're really not.
Right.
They're just willing to settle for something that you settled for. Right?
Fabulous. But what is your name, may I ask?
My name is Rick.
Nice to meet you.
Hey,
Hi.
Rick, thanks for calling.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And so you're absolutely right, because there's another part of this that you're bringing up, which is that not only are you losing somebody, but someone else is going to have that person, right? And the pain of the jealousy, envy, the fantasy that now they're happier, or now someone else is happier as a result of the breakup, when indeed what you're saying is probably so, is that you weren't willing to settle for that person, right? And so you moved on, but that new person is willing to put up with all the qualities that person was not willing to let go of.
But then you move on, and you think you moved on, and then the person comes back, and then you fall back in because you don't want anybody else to enjoy the fruits that you have.
Yeah, and so I'll just shrink that a little bit from the point of view of psychoanalytic thinking, which is, remember Freud and the Oedipus complex and the Electra complex and that whole thing between the mom and the dad, and then the baby wants to, the child wants to be the important one and kind of kill off the father or kill off the mother, and then discovers that they really can't because they're already, married and they're just the kid, right?
Right, but it's not Freud, it's Pavlov. Okay. And when you see her, you're like Pavlov's dog. You go back to the same thing. It's that one thing that takes everything to start that motion all over again.
Right, like
and
an association.
And you live it over and over again in your head.
Yes.
Like Pavlov's dog.
Okay, like a pleasure association or a pain association. Is that what you're meaning?
Well, exactly, and sometimes pleasure is pain, and sometimes pain is pleasure.
True, very true.
Did you recently go through a breakup, or is this something that you're thinking of from your own past?
We broke up 5 times.
5 times. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay. And did you guys get closer to resolution each time, or did you just find that the same issues popped up over and over again?
She never changed, but I would settle for her when I know I can do a lot better, but this is a guarantee. Okay. So I fall back in because it's a guarantee.
It's safe and safe and known.
Right, exactly.
And how painful to think that the woman that you've been with for so long is going to be taken by another man, and all the fantasies, the negative fantasies that go with that. So I think you're absolutely right. Part of the reason people don't want to break up is they don't want to face the pain of somebody, like, I don't want you, but nobody else should have you either, right? But I don't think
yeah, but you're worried. I'm worried that she'll be happier with somebody else than she was happy with me. You know what I mean?
Well, she might be, but as I tell my patients, are you willing to shut up about it? Are you willing to just zip it on the fact that he's cheating or she's cheating or she doesn't want to own her own stuff? Are you willing to zip it on that? And then they'll go, well, no, not exactly. Well,
right.
Is the new one willing? Because oftentimes the fantasy is that the person has, there's a phrase, like a lower lying fruit. Okay, you get the term?
It's low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit. So if that person can't step up to your plate, well, guess what they're going to do next round? Right? And so,
but it's my plate, and
but it's
nobody
your
else
plate.
deserves it but me.
Well, do you want to eat it, and do you want to suffer from the gastrointestinal sufferings as a result of the meal? Right?
I want to bring somebody in that's new and show her and say, look, I've upgraded.
Yes, and that is the that is where the injury gets healed, right? Is where you could wave your new lover and say, look, she's prettier, she's tighter, she has bigger breasts, she's blonder, whatever that means to you, right? And so then that pain quells because now you have that new person to take the sting away. Okay, and that's one of the reasons people rebound into another relationship. I think the healthier way is just to grieve the person and then reevaluate what you want and then fulfill on what you want. And along with that comes the pain of knowing that your old lover is with someone else.
Right.
Very painful.
Hey, did they really film a horror movie at your house, Dr. Judy?
Is what? I'm sorry? What? Oh, yeah. Yes. How did you know? How the hell did you know?
Rick,
hey, you could put a GoPro in my kitchen and film the same horror movie.
Oh, my God. Did you see the horror movie at my house?
No, I heard through the grapevine. I saw a preview for a movie, and I heard that they filmed it at your house in California.
They sure did. How did you hear that they filmed it at my house? I'm really interested to know. Oh,
cool.
A little birdie told you so. Yes,
a little bird told me.
The movie, for those of you guys who are interested, it's called The Gift. It stars Jason Bateman. It's kind of a stalking movie, and it'll be out in July.
Yeah, and I want to have Jason Bateman on, and I want to shrink his movie. I think that would be a great idea.
Yes, we're going to definitely do that.
We're going to do it. We're going to have Joel Edgerton, the director, producer on.
And the stalker guy.
I just saw him the other day, and I said, hey, Joel, I have connections, right? You're going to invite me to the premiere, and you're going to let me shrink your movie, right? And, okay, so we'll see about that.
The stalker's going to say, the stalker's going to always come back to, hey, I'm just checking to make sure you're okay.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I always have a great time seeing that film being shown on the big screen. It's like yes. So isn't it interesting? The Psychological Healing Center, right? In a horror movie, perfect. How ironic. But also a metaphor for all the scary things that happen in our life, right? So the darkness, once again, the darkness and the light.
Yeah, the darkness that can come back and haunt us.
Correct. So, no, I love your point. Thank you. And I really appreciate you calling in. And all right. And stay tuned.
Hey, Rick, thanks for calling.
Well, thanks for your explanation, Dr. Judy. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Take care.
All right, I'm going to hang up now and listen to the rest of your show. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Take care.
Love you, Walt.
Love you too, Ray.
That's so cute. Well, thank you, whoever that was, Walt. Okay, appreciate that.
Yes, indeed.
And I think that what Rick is saying is that there are all these reminders too of the person. It's not just the new lover that hurts, but it's all the songs that you've shared, and all the restaurants you've gone to, and all the little dreams and the vacations you intended to go to, and all the little children you never had. Okay, so it truly is a killing off of all the hopes and wishes and dreams, and it's really, really, really painful. So what I suggest to people who are breaking up is that you've got to understand that this is also very biological. So the best way is do not see them, do not smell them,
cold turkey.
Do not hear their voice, and just really cold turkey on the person. And I think it's a great idea to maybe mix up the environment a little bit, maybe even do a geographical for a while.
I was going to say, I got 10 things we'll hopefully get through with the time left.
Go ahead.
Of how to let go of relationships.
Sure.
Because, if you're holding on to an old relationship, now is the perfect time to let go. And here's how. First off, practice releasing regrets. Because, I said last week, if you're driving a car and you're focused on the rearview mirror while you're driving down the road or the freeway, inevitably, you're going to crash. So, relationship ends. It's tempting to dwell on what you did wrong or what you could have done differently. That might seem productive, like you somehow change things by rehearsing it, but you can't. So, all the dwelling simply causes you to suffer more. You go through that sort of what-if syndrome.
Yeah.
You know what? And it's just time to, just take those regrets and move on. Second, work on focusing on yourself, right? Keep in mind that if you want to feel love again in the future, the first step is to prepare yourself to give and receive, because you need to forgive yourself and maybe pick up and do some things that you weren't doing before, that you were doing before you got in the relationship. So you need to learn from them and move on. Third, don't think about any time as lost. I know this is a big one, right? We're in a relationship for 10 years. We're married for 25 years, Oh my gosh, if I'd only gotten out sooner. You know what? You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Shift your focus to everything you've gained. Focus on the positive. It's easier to move on because you feel empowered, not victimized, all right? Fourth, remember the bad as well as the good. 20% of us suffer from complicated grief, a persistent sense of longing for someone we lost with romanticized memories of the relationship. All right? That longing can have an addictive quality to it and actually is rooted, as you've mentioned, in our brain chemistry. So it's easier to let go of a human than a hero. I thought that was kind of a cool line. So we need to bring it down a little bit and bring it down a level. Fifth is reconnect who you are outside the relationship. Kind of said this before. Reconnect with any people or interests that may have been received. You may have received less attention while you were attached. Right? The strong, the happy, the passionate person you were attracted your ex. That person will get you through that loss and attract someone equally as amazing in the future when the time is right. Okay? What do you love about life? And that's a question you need to ask to yourself and answer. What do you love about life? Whatever that is, start going after it, and you will end up with a new passion and find someone who's equally passionate about that. And as Judy has mentioned, create separation. Hope can be a terrible thing to keep stuck in the past. You will love again, but you won't spend the rest of your life alone. In one way or another, you will meet all kinds of people and create all kinds of possibilities for relationships. If, that's a big if, you forgive yourself, let go, and open yourself up. Because if you're holding on to the past, it's like, how do they catch a monkey? Well, they put a nut in a small jar, and the monkey reaches his hand into the jar and grabs the nut, but doesn't want to let go of the nut because he's got it. But unfortunately, around his hand is also the nut. So is the jar. So they are a little immobilized because they have this jar they're hanging around. So as long as they hang on to that nut inside the jar, they get caught and of course they're captured and such. So you got to let go of stuff and be more free. Let yourself feel. We talked about this last week, and I think it's worth repeating. Losing a relationship can make you feel like a mini death, as we've talked about. Grieving, hope. You hold out for hope. Next, you feel hurt and guilty. Then, what if I've done things differently? The what if? You wouldn't have been in pain. Then you're angry, and then you start bargaining. Try maybe give a second go. Even to be so insecure and defensive and demanding. Then you might feel depressed and lonely as it hits you how much you've lost. But eventually you start to accept what happened, and you need to focus from the past to the future, as we said. You have to go through the feelings, though, as they come. And the best way to do that and to release it, I found, is to write a journal, okay? And just write it down, get it out of your head, and, some suggest, write a letter that you're never going to send, and you might want to take that letter or part of that journal and you burn it. It's over. It's done. It's in flames. We got a couple of more here. Remember the benefits of moving on, okay? When you let go, you give yourself peace. Everything about holding on is torturous. You regret. You feel ashamed. You feel guilty. You rehash, which is really quite unhealthy, as you probably know. And you obsess about all those experiences that you were suffering through. And the only way to feel peace is to quiet those thoughts that threaten it. Letting go opens up us to new possibilities. Here's an example. If you had your arms wrapped around a huge bucket of water, you wouldn't be able to give anything other than that bucket any attention because you're holding on to the bucket, right?
Right.
So give yourself, you have to give to receive. Give love to get love. Share joy to feel joy. If only possible, if open and receptive. And a few more here about how to let go. Recognize and replace fearful thoughts. We talked about fear before. I think it's a huge one. When you're holding on to a relationship, it's usually more about attachment than love. And the whole show is about attachment theory, right?
Right.
Love wants for the other person's happiness. Fear wants to hold on to whatever appears to make you happy so you don't have to feel the alternative. I'll never feel love again. I'll always feel lonely. I am completely powerless, right? Obviously, those phrases taken out of context are, it's true. So replace them with, all pain passes eventually. It will be easier if I help them pass by being mindful. I can't always control what's happened to me, but I can control how I respond. And the last one, which I thought is really simple, and we talk about a lot in yoga, and just being, just be. Just be yourself. Take time for yourself. You're involved in this relationship. You got all this stuff whizzing through your brain, and now it's time just to calm it down, release some of that stuff that you've gotten. Focus on you. It's okay to do that because you're not in a relationship, but you're getting ready. And I know I've said this before in relationship stuff. What if you knew that in 5 months, the most amazing person was going to waltz into your life, and you knew it, and you had 5 months to get ready? What would you do? Would you, start getting exercising more? Would you take that closet that's got gobs of stuff in it that you need to clean out? Would you have a huge garage sale? Would you start to exercise? Would you, start yoga? Would you start a hobby? What would you do if you knew that person was just around the corner and you needed to get ready? And you're not getting ready to get ready to get ready. You are getting ready, and know with expectation, anticipation, it's going to happen.
Very, very good points. Very good points.
And if you'd like any copy of our notes, you can certainly write us at info@DrJudyWTF. I'd be happy to let you have anything that you need. I've sent notes to folks in the past, and it's really helpful because it's like, well, how did you get that? Where'd you get that? What's some supportive material? And we happen to do that. So if you have a question that you ask, you don't want to call us, but you want to ask, that's where you get a lot of ideas from our shows. Song you want to shrink, or just a comment, write us info@drjudywtf.com. Or if you're listening to us online, flip over to Facebook and like us. Or say hi to us on Twitter, which again is Dr. Judy WTF in both cases. And if you really want to be serious about your picker and really be able to guarantee you'll pick better next time, then you want to pick up the phone or write us and get involved in the Psychological Healing Center, because we have a whole plethora of folks, Dr. Judy included, and of course other professionals on a sliding scale, that really, really can help you out of whatever challenge you're in a pretty rapid rate. It's surprising how efficient and effective this is.
The way I've been putting it is that we need to look at our encoding and then decode the psychoviruses that don't work for us, and then recode into health. So it's an encode, decode, and recode from through to model. And I think the most important part of looking at relationships is that when two people come together, are they vampiring each other, or are they bringing each other light? So with that, I know we are out of time.
We got to do our song.
And we're going to shrink that tune.
We're going to see how much light we can get out of this one. Okay. The song is called How It's Going to Be, and it's by Third Blind Eye. So I'm going to read the lyrics.
Third Eye Blind.
Yes, indeed. How dyslexic of me. Third Eye Blind. I'm blind today. I'm only pretty sure that I can't take any more. Before you take a swing, I wonder what we're fighting for. When I say out loud, I want to get out of this, I wonder if there's anything I'm going to miss.
Okay, so here's a person, end of their game with a person, and really not even sure what they're fighting for, but they're already thinking, okay, I know I need to get out, but I kind of get a feeling that there's going to be something I'm going to miss about this.
Well, fear of missing out, fear of loss is a huge motivator.
Fear of loss, right.
Fear of loss. How it's going to be when there's no one there to talk to between you and me, because I don't care. How's it going to be? How's it going to be when we used to laugh? There's a shouting match, sharp as a thumbnail scratch, a silence I can't ignore.
Well, you know, they're alluding back to the good times and the bad times, the laughing, the shouting match, sharp as a thumbnail scratch, and the silence that's so horribly horrific. But when there's no one to talk to anymore, that's really, really painful. So that's that abandonment. Yeah, how's it going to be? It's going to be really, really rough in that silence.
Like the hammock by the doorway we spent time in, swings empty. Didn't see lightning like last fall, when it was always about to hit me. I wonder how it's going to be when it goes down, how it's going to be when you're not around. Yeah, so there's this, emptiness, and then there's the lightning, which is the drama and the trauma, and but ultimately, when it all goes down, when the relationship goes down, and you're not around, then it's going to be pretty lonely. It's time for relation shift, as we say.
Exactly.
How's it going to be when you found out there was nothing between you and me because I don't care?
And there's the biggest fear, apathy. My God. It's, it's one thing to hate a person, but to know that they don't care, that's probably the most painful of all.
The opposite of love is not hate. It's apathy. How's it going to be? How's it going to be when you don't know me anymore? How's it going to be when you get myself back, want to get myself back again?
Right. So this is the whole thing is being narsed out when you don't know me anymore, when the person doesn't even have a memory of who you are. That's the ultimate of apathy. Like, what did you say her name was? Who was that I used to date? And so there's that, that urge to not be non-existent anymore. So when that sense of I don't exist anymore comes up, insignificance, and they want to get back again, because that's the worst feeling in the world, is to not be remembered.
And lastly, the soft dive of oblivion. I want to taste the salt of your skin, the soft dive of oblivion. How's it going to be when you don't know me anymore? How's it going to be? How's it going to be? And how's it going to be?
Not good.
Not good. And that's and the song is, of course, entitled How's It Going to Be?
Yep.
From Third Eye Blind.
Yep.
So that's our show, folks. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We're still growing, and appreciate all of your involvement. This has been Walt Lusk. your host of Dr. Judy WTF with Dr. Judy Rosenberg. And again, you can catch us on drjudywtf.com. And we're going to play our song, and we're going to have, we already know what we're going to do next week. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening, and God bless everyone.
And thank you, Rick, for calling in.
Yeah,
really
thanks,
appreciate
Rick.
that.
Appreciate it.